The challenge, I think, with a lot of agent products is just the fact that when people arrive to create an agent, they need to sometimes go through an ideation process. If you don't know the base capabilities of the agent, it's very hard to think about what you actually want to build, right? Because you don't know if it's going to work or not.
Today we see how to describe a workflow without writing a single line of code with Joao Justi, co-founder and CTO of Twin.
My name is Joao. I started programming as a child. I read a book in the 90s called The Road Ahead by Bill Gates, and that was my kind of like first introduction to the concept of computers in the first place. From that moment on, I was very obsessed with the idea of computers, programming. I ended up going to school for law. The main reason was because I thought, okay, I already spent so much time learning programming, so I want to learn something that's a bit complementary, especially when it comes to starting a company. But then I dropped out. That's when I started my first company, which was doing algorithmic trading, basically. Then I worked for a company called Zama, where I was doing homomorphic encryption and doing private preserving, machine learning, and eventually I met Hugo, and that's when we started Twin. So I think we spent quite some time, Hugo and I, like we would meet and discuss multiple times what we wanted to do around AI. So the first idea of Twin, like when we were pitching, was we wanted agents to do tasks for you end to end. And the first thing that we built around it were computer use agents. Eventually, we were able to find that these computer use agents, they were quite good at some niche tasks, but they were not capable of creating an agent that does the task end to end for you. So that was like a big limitation, and we started working around when it comes to acquisition, go-to-market, etc., around that limitation. But at some point, when the models got good enough, we saw, I think pretty early on as well, that the next step that these models would allow for agents would be agents that can build themselves. It's sort of like the self-healing, self-built agent, which is the current version of Twin. The challenge, I think, with a lot of agent products is just the fact that when people arrive to create an agent, they need to sometimes go through an ideation process. So they need to kind of figure out what kind of operations within their business can they actually use an agent for. If you don't know the base capabilities of the agent, it's very hard to think about what you actually want to build, right? Because you don't know if it's going to work or not. I think we built a very good system to create agents, and now we have to build a system where people can figure out what are the best agents they can build as soon as they arrive into the product. Yeah. The traditional automation products, they're basically fixed workflows, and that's exactly like what we're trying not to do, right? Like agents, they can reason at every step, and they are not a static logical flow. So that means they are very adaptable, they don't break as easily, and they're much easier to set it up. And when it comes to like open source projects, I think it's just very easy to start with Twin. Like you don't have to install anything, you just go to our website, 5 minutes later you have an agent, and then we host it for you, we deal with the security aspects of it. So on the browser side, I think the most important aspect of it is just the fact that a browser is very heavy to run. If you want to run them efficiently and reliably, you need to have a very specialized infrastructure for that. And then the second part is just the fact that browsers were made for humans. They're not made for agents. So it's like a completely different problem, right? Like a human is not going to have 100 windows open in different screens at the same time and like use all of them at the same time. So you have to adapt a lot of the stack to make it usable by agents, and that's what we've done. We created something completely from scratch that is able to scale browsers very quickly, very efficiently with like low cost, and you can start a new browser session very fast. We wrote our own Wayland compositor. It's basically like a window manager, right? So it's something that every application on your computer, it's talking to a window manager to know how do you position these windows in your machine. And at the same time, you can stream to the user very efficiently. There's a general property of intelligence in the sense that if you have like two people, person A and B is smarter than A, it doesn't mean necessarily that all intellectual tasks that A can do, B will always also be able to do. That means that like when you collaborate, you generally are going to have things that you can do better than other person. And with language models, this is even more the case. Language models have a weirder intelligence compared to humans when it comes to completeness, because they can accomplish very hard tasks, and at the same time they have sometimes like some intelligence gaps that are like very localized. I think the best kind of AI human collaboration comes from how can the human as efficiently as possible fill the gaps of the LLM intelligence. We have companies using Twin for content generation, for lead generation, for real estate marketing. And I think the question of verticalization in this regard is more around the communication with users. So when you have a very horizontal product, people arrive into the product and they have to understand, how can it actually help me, right? Like, how can it actually generate value for what I'm doing? The main signal that for us is very encouraging is the fact that users, when they start using the product, after a while they start using it more and more. So they create more agents and they go deeper into their use cases. They make their agents more complex.